access the podcast of OA. Located deep within Sector 14845 and powered by the Emerald Light of Will, the podcast of OA is your guide to the Green Lantern universe. Hosted by Lantern Myron Rumsey, the podcast of OA begins now.
Hey everybody, this is Myron Rumsey from the podcast of OA, and I'm starting this episode out a little different. For those of you who follow me on social media, you may have seen me make a post about a week ago about a medical incident that I went through, and so I kind of wanted to put this on in front of this episode because Phil and I recorded this episode before I had this incident. And I thought it would be really odd if I posted content and it looked like everything was fine, because it's really not. Just to kind of as a preamble, this was recorded literally 24 hours before my life changed. So to let you know what's going on, and I believe in being transparent. The day after Phil and I recorded this, I began to feel a little awkward in my left arm and leg, more so in my arm than my leg. And in going to the emergency room, there were a number of things going on. And the long story short is I've had a stroke. And so I'm on the mend. Fortunately, the good news for me is it hasn't affected the left side of my face. The bad side for everybody else is it hasn't affected my mouth. It has provided a great deal of impact in terms of being able to control my left arm and my left leg to some degree. My leg seems to be a little bit better. I am able to get up and walk around and do some things. Some things pose a significant challenge for me. The big question that I'm sure people might be thinking is, what does this mean for the blog of OA, and what does it mean for the podcast of OA? And I'll just say this: life is about overcoming challenges and things. And while the stroke may hold me down a little bit, it's not going to stop me. So I am still in this for as long as I can be in it. The frequency might change a little bit. Not that it's been great as of late. January was a particularly tough month for my family and I, and February not starting out so great either. So I don't know about the frequency. I'm going to try to, because this is good therapy for me, quite frankly. And talking to a good friend like Phil, it really does help. So I see that content staying. What I do see this really impacting is content on the blog of OA side. Typing for me right now is a significant challenge. And if I can leverage some voice to speech, voice to text technology that will help, I may be doing a lot of articles. I really don't know. At this point, I don't even know when or if I get to go back to work. I haven't had, I need to have another consultation with a couple of doctors, and I have a procedure coming up on my arteries this week. So we'll see how things are when I come through all that. But my intent certainly is to not stop working and to not stop doing Green Lantern content. It just might look a little different. And like I said, the written stuff may kind of stagger off and become less and less. And the video content might become more, because I think it may be easier for me to publish videos on YouTube and then maybe post those videos on the blog of OA than for me to try to type an article. We'll see how that all progresses. I want to say thank you to everybody who has reached out or left a comment wishing me well and hoping I'm okay. I'm doing all right. I mean, obviously this is as much a mental challenge as a physical one, and I'm very lucky that I have a fantastic wife who is right there by my side, and I'll get through this. So without further ado, let's jump into the episode. I hope you enjoy it, and we'll be back probably within the next week or so to talk about Green Lantern Corps #1. Take care, everybody. Welcome, Owens. Welcome to the podcast of OA, episode number 255. I am your co-host, Myron Rumsey, and joined with me is my friend on the other end, Mr. Phil Bova. Phil, how are you, my friend?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Happy New Year. Been a while.
Yeah. So my New Year's resolution got thrown out. My New Year's resolution was to do more regular content. And January of 2025 hit me and my family like a freaking freight train. It has been a month between personal health issues and a family health crisis. And it's been a long month, man.
Yeah, that's rough,
So
dude. I
I
get it.
thank you, my friend, for bearing with me.
Anytime. We're here. That's all that matters.
That's right. We're here. It's 2025. It's a new year. We got some comics to talk about, and boy, do I need some four-color therapy. That's all I gotta say. So we're gonna make this kind of just an episode where we're gonna talk about Green Lantern Fractured Spectrum. Say that 5 times fast. And Green Lantern number 19 are going to be our two talking points for the episode. We're going to skip listener feedback just to make it easier in the editing so I can get some content out there a little bit quicker. And then we'll pick up from there. Comic news wise, there hasn't really been a lot of news. I mean, we've seen the solicitations that have come out, and we know Green Lantern Corps is coming, and Absolute Green Lantern is coming. Green Lantern Dark is continuing. Green Lantern is continuing. Carol Ferris continues to be a player in the new Justice League Unlimited book, and you've got Alan Scott over in the JSA book. So there's a lot of Green Lantern content right now, which is a great thing.
There is. It's a plethora. I love it. A
Yeah,
few years back, we were complaining about not having enough content, and
they
here
say
we
it's
are.
either feast or famine, right? Right now we're
Right.
feasting. We've had famine for a while, but so I'm glad to be past all that, and we're in kind of a, I don't want to say a new era, but it feels like we're on the verge of a lot more Green Lantern content and things being given some good attention, which is great. In terms of other news, I mean, we know that the Lanterns TV show has added 61-year-old actor Ulrich Thompson to the cast as Sinestro. So he joins the cast, which really kind of takes away some of the leaks that about there. There was a script leak on Reddit, which was pulled away rather quickly, and it was the plot for all 7 episodes of the show, or 8 episodes. I don't remember now just how many it is, but it was leaks of the entire plot, and there was no Sinestro in there whatsoever. So obviously those plot leaks are not what we're getting in the show. Which, boy, I'm really happy, because I wasn't happy with what I saw in the plot leaks. it uh it was not, I mean, they tried to tie Black Hand into the source, or and trying to do all that stuff, trying to make New Frontier and Green Lantern Volume 3 and throw it into a blender, and that's kind of what you got. You had a little bit of Hal with a bad past, and there's a reason why he gave up his ring, and he fights Guy for the ring, and kind of like an echo of that infamous fight between Hal and Guy when they fight for the power ring, and the winner is the Green Lantern of the sector, kind of thing. Which was an interesting story. I don't know how it would have played out on TV had they done it that way. And it also had it tried to make Black Hand a cult.
Yeah. Yeah. I
And
remember texting you about that. I'm like, it's kind of the same kind of crap they did with G.I. Joe, and like Serpentor is like a cult. And it's like I like Serpentor, and I've always been a big fan, but I don't like this whole cult persona he's got going on. But man, that disappointed me when I read that. I was like, oh, really? I mean, that's the story you want to play this guy out as in some stupid cult. You don't have to do that.
and then they changed it to the Sun Eater and try to connect Final Night to it all.
Right.
With Hal, of course, sacrificing himself at the end of it. So
That's what it all sounded like. I mean, it
it
sounded like just a basic lead up to Final Night with some stuff thrown in beforehand,
it
some
was kind of like
foreshadowing.
take Final Night, Green Lantern Volume 3, and Justice League New Frontier, throw it into a blender, and what do you get? So I
See,
was really
and
happy to
that's
see
the
that.
uh, leaks or not, right? Those came from someplace, and I don't know. Somebody maybe made them up and threw them out there. It doesn't matter. My point is, like, if you're going to produce something like that, I don't understand your logic behind it. You either number one aren't a fan of Green Lantern, or number two you're just a buffoon because you don't even flesh out any kind of storyline. Because I read all of them in depth, and I was like, there's no cohesive storyline here that I really want to grasp my attention to give it any thought, right? So then I'm thinking to myself, okay, well, what if we pull from source material? So that's where your Final Night stuff comes in, your Green Lantern Volume 3, and then your smidgens of this. But then you go to change stuff like a Black Hand kind of thing being a cult. And it's like, okay, that's one way to do it, but why would you do it that way? That takes away from the whole presence of Black Hand. You take away from the whole Necron thing potentially if that ever was to come to play. But it just I don't understand why you can't put in-depth thought into stuff and why regurgitate this crap. It's like that last animated Green Lantern, the terrible take on with John Stewart, and it was like, why do you waste your time on these things? And who are you
Well,
talking to that says these are good ideas, you know?
we may be here a year from now saying, boy, that was some good stuff compared to what we're actually getting.
Well, that's true.
Because in my mind, why are we doing some of the things we're doing? I know, I of course express my dismay at a 61-year-old actor being Sinestro. And of course you get well, they're doing an older Hal. And yeah, we know. The problem is it isn't that it doesn't fit with what they're doing. The problem is what they're doing doesn't make any sense.
Right.
Uh,
And anybody that says that, it's like, well, they got an old Sinestro. Well, Hal is old. I mean, that's your default, right? Because now that's the story. Because
duh.
Hal's the old Lantern now. And that's been since this has been released, that's been the whole narrative around it. Old
Right.
Hal.
Right.
It's like old man Logan, right?
Yeah.
Like
Only it's unearned.
yeah,
Because people bring
right.
that up. People bring up the fact, well, Hugh Jackman, he's an older guy too, and he's playing Wolverine. Yes, but he's been playing Wolverine for how many years now? Since
Right.
the 90s, I think.
Nobody's
When
played him before. I mean, nobody's
right.
gonna
He's
gonna play him
earned the
after.
old man Logan story, correct? Because he's been playing that role for so long. We've seen him in his heyday. We've seen all that stuff. We're not getting that with Hal Jordan. We're jumping right to the old Hal Jordan, who is almost 30 years older than Superman at that point. Uh, duh. So anyway, so we have our casting for Sinestro, and I'm not knocking the actors. I think this person, I've never seen him in anything, but he may very well be an amazing actor, just not what I'm looking for. That's all.
Well,
Uh,
and it's all in the eyes of the beholder, right? I mean, we can sit here and we can talk and we can theorize and we can play out what we think's going to happen and we can look at it and say, yeah, they're probably going to do this and they're probably going to do that. This is a bad idea here. This is a crap idea. They shouldn't have done that. But at the end of the day, we haven't even seen the product yet, and I'm a firm believer in a fandom that, I'm not going to pass judgment on anything right out of the gate, but I am going to have a skeptical eye, right? And that's what any fandom should do. But what I won't do is these idiots that jump on like the Superman trailer, right? And they're automatically riffing on this dude and his face and how it looks in this one angle. And it's like, you do realize that that's actually the guy's eyes. I mean, CGI can fix it, but why? But that's actually naturally the dude looks that way. So
it,
you're riffing on
in
him.
in my mind, those things are nitpicky things.
Right.
Are they getting the tone of the character right? Are they getting the other things right? My problem with this is they're not getting the tone right. They're not
Right.
getting anything right in my
Right.
mind. The
Exactly.
only thing that's made me interested in Lanterns is the casting of John Stewart, but that's not enough for me.
Well,
My
because you're not a John Stewart fan at heart. I
no,
mean, your heart lies with Hal Jordan. So, I mean, of course, any kind of reaction a fan person's going to have is going to be respectable, same as yours. I feel the same way. But it's like I don't know. I've kind of given up with people making common sense decisions on what I think should be a legitimate pathway for a DC universe because it seems like every other decision is not in line with what I feel like fandom wants. But I don't
yeah,
know. Does
I,
fandom want an old Hal? I mean, ask that question, right? It hasn't been asked. Do you want this old Hal? I mean, where's that question at?
it's
If I'm a
interesting.
producer,
Yeah, right. Nobody's asked that question. I mean,
right,
when you look on the internet, the results are very divided. You've got
right.
people who are Justice League animated fans who are like, "Yay, we're going to see the JLA DCAU version in live action." And then you've got other folks who are like, "This isn't what I want at all." So I
Mhm,
think it's pretty divided. I couldn't, obviously you couldn't put percentages on it, but I see a lot of very, very mixed reactions, which to me doesn't help a show that's trying to get off the ground. I would want as much positivity around this show as
mhm.
possible. And you could have done that by appeasing both sets of fans and giving them what they want. But whatever.
And what really makes it hard is like Gunn goes all in on what he wants to do, right? And
Hmm.
at the end of the day, you feel out your fandom and all of a sudden you start making these choices and start making your decision, then you're knee deep into it. And then you're like, well, I can't pull back now because WB's on me and I have to do this and I have to do this. Well, now I'm
Right.
already invested into it. Now it's already too late to pull back. Well, if you went into a gun shy to begin with, you should have just pulled back and got the temperature of the fans before you
Correct.
started pulling decisions like that, thinking that's what everybody
Correct.
wants. But
That's what I feel like is he has a vision and he's not really looking at the fandom as a whole. And granted, you have to make this accessible to everybody.
right,
But I think what the majority of fandoms, at least from my perspective, the majority of fans want, would appeal to the masses. So I don't know whether he's listening to certain people and that's what's driving his decisions, or in the case of Lanterns, it seems like he's kind of hands off, that he's listened to what their vision is and likes it and is just like, okay, go do it. And I
hmm,
don't think he's really as hands on with it as we might think. And right now, the only thing we can judge the gun stuff by is what we've seen. And all we've really seen is the Superman trailer and we've seen Creature Commandos. And did you watch Creature Commandos?
absolutely did. I
Yeah.
was amazed by it. I was actually surprised that I would like it as much as I did.
I enjoyed it quite a bit. I'm not sure if I liked some of the elements of it, but by and large, I was entertained. I should put it that way.
And that's a good way to put it because I mean there were some really, really interesting characters. I mean, GI Robot was awesome. It was just I don't know. I had a good time with it, and I didn't think that I would. And it was a buddy of mine that
Yeah.
said, "Hey, you really need to give it a shot. I bet you you're going to have a fun with it."
I enjoyed it for the most part. There were a few things I didn't care for, like I didn't care for the characterization of Frankenstein, and I didn't like some of the things. But there's some things I really enjoyed. So it's a mixed bag for me, but nothing I would criticize the Gunverse over, other than right now it's just the Lantern show, and again that's near and dear to my heart. So I'm more critical of it. My expectations are much different than a Creature Commandos, where I go into it knowing a little bit about the characters, but I'm not invested enough to know what is really the Creature Commandos history. I'm sure if
Right.
I was a huge Creature Commandos fan, I might feel differently. I don't know. I don't know if that's a very large audience.
I don't know. Maybe not. Or maybe it is now. Who knows?
Yeah, who knows? But anyway, my friend, we are here to talk Green Lantern comics. It's a new year. I've got some new threads. We got some new books. So let's talk about Green Lantern Fractured Spectrum and let's jump into Green Lantern 19.
All
Let's
right.
take a quick break and we'll come back and we'll jump right into it.
In brightest day or blackest night, there's only one place to listen to the best in Green Lantern. That's the podcast of Oa.
All right, my friends, welcome back. We're talking about Green Lantern Fractured Fractured Spectrum. I'm going to struggle with that the entire episode. Fractured Spectrum special number one. It was a special issue done by V. Ken Marion is the artwork on it, and Jeremy Adams is the writer. This is kind of the setup. This is the bridging where we left off after the Civil Core special, and bridging us over to where we're going next. And it's interesting, when you and I talked last, we talked about this series feeling like a TV season. And I
Mm.
felt like the most recent issue, the Civil Core special, was kind of the season finale. This whole stuff was the season finale, and we were getting ready to kick into a second season. And I feel like this is the second season lead off episode. There's a lot of setup, getting things ready for what's to come. This whole thing with the Library of Forever, pretty neat. I really like the little creature there in the beginning that welcomes the Sorrow Lantern to it.
Gotta admit that the artistry on Sorrow Lantern's pretty dope.
Yeah, yeah.
He looks
V
cool.
V Ken Marion is from around the Twin Tiers area where I live in New York State. He doesn't currently live in this area, but his parents still do. So I always like seeing his name in the headlines of the books in the credits, because it's like a hometown boy does good kind of thing. And I like most of his artwork. A great deal of it. Some of it, not so much. Some of it doesn't hit well, but I thought his design work on the Sorrow Lantern in this opening, I thought was very strong.
Now I gotta do say one thing about what this Sorrow Lantern. I do like the dude. I think he's cool looking. I don't like how he came to be, right? I'm the
Yeah.
gilded lover crap. I mean, that's just that trope's old. I would have liked to have done. I wish they would have done a different type of reasoning for the sorrow, something more deep than just, oh, you broke my heart. I'm so
Yeah.
sad now. And all of a sudden I'm so sad that it leads me to some new lantern that, I mean, that must have been some deep sorrow. I mean, some
That's right.
hardcore
Of
sorrow.
all the beings in the universe, this guy who got left at the altar
Yeah.
in Las Vegas, got the most sorrowful story out there.
I
Uh,
mean, I'm a Carol fan, but I mean, if she left me at the altar, I'd be like, okay, c'est la vie. I guess that wasn't good enough.
I guess, right?
But
I liked the whole thing where they are talking about how this issue expands. We find out that it isn't so much the book of Oa, but the books of Oa,
mhm.
and that using a certain item, you can see more, which I think is kind of cool. I did like the pivot where we see Hal in space, and this is where I didn't care for the artwork so much. I didn't care for Hal's spiky hair deal, and
Yeah,
VK Marion does that a lot.
it kind of looked kind of like kiddish,
I
like he's a
kind
kid in the
of
playground.
I started thinking about it. I thought, why that stylistic choice? And I thought, well, maybe in his perspective, you're out there in zero gravity. Here would Hal's hair be floating in space a little bit? Is that what it is? I don't know.
I mean,
Uh,
maybe.
that's what I'm telling myself. I enjoyed the fact that you got Hal sitting there just enjoying the perspective and having a sandwich, which I can imagine him doing. Very much in character, and Hal makes the mistake of saying out loud, or at least thinking out loud, that for the first time in a long time, things aren't bad, which is usually a signal that things are about to get really bad, right?
So I'm gonna ask a question for Adams, like what's on that sandwich he's eating on that asteroid or
What
meteor
what
sitting
kind
out
of sandwich
floating out in
was
the
it?
middle of nowhere. I mean, he looks like some
That's
kind
going
of
to be the
lettuce.
Chris Farley question of the interview we do with him.
And we got it looks like bread. I mean, you could assume it's bread, and I
I,
don't know what
I
the
I I think there's some lettuce on there.
yeah. Well, maybe you never know, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
can't tell. It could be some alien bologna for all we know. That'll be the next time we have him on the show. That'll be the lead off question. So, in this special on page so and so, when Hal's eating a sandwich, what kind of sandwich is it? Yeah, that'll probably be the
I would ask that.
last time Jeremy Adams wants to come on the show, right? But funny as I'll get out. What did you think about Hal buzzing the alien ship?
He's just having fun.
Yeah, some people I saw some comments online saying that was kind of a douchey thing to do, but I saw it as very much he's not causing any harm. Um,
I saw it more like, you know, I mean, he's elated, right? I mean, look at
right.
all the stuff prior to this, him sitting on the asteroid eat or whatever that is, eating a sandwich, right? I mean, he's been through a lot, stuck on Earth,
There's
whatever. I mean, it's going on for a long time now. So,
there's a lightness in tone here, and
yeah.
in essence, Hal is buzzing the control tower, for lack of a better analogy.
I mean, that's a good analogy. I mean, that works.
I thought it was interesting when we shift to Oa, and obviously we see Killua back in the green, to see Razor as a Green Lantern, and to see the power battery on Earth transplanted to Oa. I'm not sure how I feel about that. It felt like this is the backup plan. I don't know if the plan was to move it to Oa, but I guess that's a good idea. What are your thoughts?
I don't know, man. I wish they would put it on Mogo. Wherever Mogo is. I mean, but I'd like Mogo as their home planet. It can move and go places.
What did you think of Razor as a Green Lantern? I think that's kind of interesting.
It's kind of a quick shift to a Green Lantern, you know what I mean? Like he's
Yeah,
all of a sudden nothing. Well, I mean Red Lantern if you want to count that, and then he goes into this small stint where he's like what, the indigo kind of or
he
blue?
was a Blue Lantern.
Blue, that's right.
And then he obviously he's lost that ring, and in that Civil Core special, they had those Earth rings from Earth, and they gave one to Razor.
I mean, I mean, he's come a long way, right? I mean, I think he's worthy of a Green Lantern ring. I hope they don't. I hope he can still yield the others. I don't. I'd rather not lose where Razor came from, out of the animated series, just at the expense of let's put him in a green. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, unless you've watched the animated series, you don't know who Razor is, and hopefully people have watched the show. If not, you really should. It gives it my highest ratings. Uh, So I'm sure though, for those that are not familiar with the show, this might feel unearned, right? And that I get it. I could see that. Uh, I'm still the whole thing with Ellie.
Yeah, I
Somewhere
know. I
along the
knew.
way, this has got to come back to bite John. This can't continue the way it is.
Well, so she just a living embodiment now, so she can just appear and start talking to whoever because she's talking to Kelly here.
Yeah, I get the feeling that she's a living construct, for lack of a better analogy. That's what it feels like.
Kind of like an AI then, just an AI following you around.
Yeah, I don't know. And we've kind of lost John talking to his mother in the ring, which when you and I were when we were talking about that, we are like, those two things, the whole thing with Ellie and the whole thing with his mother in the ring, writers aren't going to continue that. That's not going to continue unless they choose to address it. And we're not really getting how they're addressing the mother in the ring thing, which I think is really unfortunate because I felt like there was such an opportunity in the whole John Stewart, that whole book of in War Journal to have John have that moment with his mother, and we kind of lost it. And now the mother's gone, and we're not referring to her in the ring anymore either, which I think is kind of a missed opportunity. But Jade Stone, you need to see Jade Stone continuing as a character. And it was interesting in reading the interviews with Jeremy Adams talking about Jade Stone. Jade Stone was essentially a throwaway character, and Jade Stone was like, "Well, can I keep using this character?" And they're like, "Sure, I guess." And I think it's kind of neat. I don't know how much we're going to see Jade Stone, but it's another nice addition to the pantheon of characters we've got.
He reminds me of that. There was another one prior to him that was kind of robotic. That wasn't.
Stell,
Oh yeah, him. That's who it was. Yeah, that's who it reminds me of.
and we see Kyle back as a Green Lantern again. And there's some people that are upset they wanted to see the White Lantern thing continue, and I totally get it. I think from Adam's perspective is that the emotional spectrum is so fraught with problems right now that there's no way that Kyle could maintain the White Lantern power
Mhm.
for any real length of time. But it's not said on panel, which I totally get why fans would be a little frustrated in the fact that he's back as a Green Lantern with no real explanation.
What about the Corps' renowned leader?
Yeah. Totally unearned in my book. But what role does she have? It doesn't really tell you. I mean, she does this little ceremony, but is she the leader of the Corps? Is she just a spokesman? Is she the interface between the Green Lanterns and the Guardians? A lot of that is still kind of up in the air. It doesn't really tell you. She just kind of leads this whole opening.
Well, I like her outfit, her garb looks awesome. Um, and I don't. I'm kind of with you. Like I love Jessica Cruz, don't get me wrong, and I think she's top tier, but I don't know why she would be put at the helm, or even what seems like a mediary between the Guardians and the Corps members, or whatever I don't know whatever her role is, but I think that should have went to somebody else. I mean,
Well,
Kilowog or
given
Hello.
Slac's history,
Yeah, Solak. I mean, right.
that seems like a natural fit. It seems like a progression of his role or a continuation of the role he had. So I'm not sure, I don't know if I really feel it's earned, but if it's something to give her a role, I guess that's how Jeremy Adams is juggling that piece. Because we've got the cast of characters isn't getting any smaller. If anything, it's
Mhm.
getting bigger. And so
It
that
is.
challenge becomes greater in how do I give them all something to do that's meaningful.
Yeah, because I mean everybody's appearing here. You got Baz in here, Joe Mullane, I mean, they're all here.
Yep. Mhm.
Next page is a killer. The Sorrow
Yeah.
Man,
The Sorrow
down and
guy
on
shows up.
guy.
Yeah. Yeah. I thought that was neat. Is it watching guys' reaction? Do you think guys talk about ice? I'm assuming he's talking about ice in his comments. That I
Uh,
don't, I should have
oh,
told her I love her, but it's too late.
I mean that'd be the only one, right?
It's the only one I can think of. But yeah, it was interesting to see the Sorrow Lantern affect guys so strongly,
Yeah,
considering who
really,
it is.
that must be a strong ring to really like envelop Guy Gardner of all characters and whatever the sorrow is and pull out some of those chords. I mean, he did it awfully quickly.
Sure, and look at how like he's got three fist constructs with brass knuckles hitting him, at least three, hitting him while this is happening, and it doesn't even slow him down.
Oh, and here's Nathan's famous monologue. You did this. This is your fault. Yours and Carol, the jilted lover.
Yeah. So
Grr.
do you think that he's going to look at both Carol and Hal as his arch enemy, or do you think he just sees one of them more than the other?
I mean, I don't know. I think they both share blame. I mean,
Yeah,
to be quite honest with you, we don't know enough about Nathan Broom here to not. What kind of blame does he have? I mean, he does. He might play a part. I mean, what was his relationship like with Carol prior to that?
right.
Was it tumultuous? I mean, did he hit her? Was he abusive? And we don't know.
Sure. Sure. We don't know what kind of a boyfriend he was. Or was he just the token guy? Was he the guy that gets married on the fifth date? You know, one of those
Right.
kind of people? Who knows?
He's just a filler character, man. Now he's a Sorrow Lantern, though.
But it's interesting that, while Hal is defending himself, he's trying to help Nathan. He's trying to talk him down, which is a very Hal thing to do. He sees his role in this. He's where, let me help you control this thing. Let me help you get under control. And Nathan steals the Book of Oa, which I love the design in the Book of Oa,
Yeah, that's a cool book.
and he disappears. And we find out the guy had the Book of Oa. That when Nathan got to where he thought the Book of Oa was, it wasn't the Book of Oa. That it had been swapped out. I love the Guardians' reaction to Guy's quarters, Guy's little room there on Oa, and what a mess it is.
Hey, did you notice that one's a blue and one's a red, huh?
Yes, I noticed that, and I'm not sure what the deal is with that. I'm not sure if the Guardians are the Guardians of the entire emotional spectrum. Can't really tell.
Because it's the first time we've seen the Guardians in however long, and now they're showing up with different lantern
Yeah, because
insignia.
the Guardians are back, and you don't know whether their time in that source energy has changed them. And it's interesting on that page with Jessica, you see them wearing different colored robes, and I see there's an Avarice one. There's one with the Star Sapphire symbol.
Oh yeah, they're all. Oh, there's Indigo.
Yep. So they're
Okay,
kind of all represented. So it seems like they're not so much the guardians of just the Green Lanterns, but the guardians of the entire emotional spectrum, which is kind of interesting.
that's kind of, and well, then that would make Jessica Cruz. She's holding the green. I wonder why they don't have a Guardian for the Willpower one.
There's
Well, they're
got to
all
be at least
dead.
one.
They're
There's
all
got to be at
dead
least
then.
one. I think in that crowd shot, there might be one with green on. No, I don't see one with green. That's interesting.
Mm-mm,
The logos are kind of small, so it's a little hard to tell.
sure.
I got to imagine there's at least one. I wonder if there's 7 guardians, one for each color.
Well, then they need a
That would be
sorrow one.
that would be interesting. Yeah, you would need more.
A
But
sorrow Guardian.
the Sorrow Guardian. It's interesting though to listen to Guy talk about what he did, and he pulls a Mission Impossible style stealing of the Book of Oa, but then he found out about the Eye of Krona making it all of them, which I think is such a neat idea.
Hmm.
That the Guardians would hide that history in that way. I'm just taking a quick look through. That poor librarian left in a bad way. But basically, this sets them up for their mission to go out and try to get the emotional spectrum under control. That they could splinter the universe. And I, some criticism has been laid on this issue about it being all set up and very little else. And I get it. This is leading things forward, though.
Well,
Uh,
isn't that what it's supposed to do?
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
it's fracture spectrum number one. There's not going to be a number two. This is just setting up for what's coming. I mean, that's pretty much the pitcher, right? The pitcher's through
right,
the pitch. Now here we go. We got to see how this game's going to play out.
right. I gotta say, I love the cover. I thought that was really cool.
Mhm.
And V. Ken Marion's artwork for the most part, I liked. I didn't care for Guy, and not Guy, but how the depiction of Kyle. The hair is such a mess.
I liked Guy though. I thought he did a good job with Guy.
Yeah, I thought Guy looked good. I just didn't care for his version of Hal and Kyle. Other than that, though, it looked all right. I thought there were a lot of fun things in this issue. Like you said, this is set up, and I went into it not expecting any more than that. So I guess I wasn't disappointed. if I was looking at it as, is this going to be a meat and potatoes book? No, it's a prelude, right? It's
Right.
setup.
It means if you're not into it, you need to get into it because I mean, this is going to leave you with an ungodly amount of questions if you just picked it up, you know?
Right.
Well, how do we
It,
get here and where are we going?
if there was this much setup in a regular issue, I would feel more disappointed
Sure.
because to me, the main series should be the meat and potatoes. This is the appetizer.
Hmm.
And as appetizer, I enjoyed it. I like I said, I wouldn't say it's a great comic book. I wouldn't say it's a bad comic book. I thought it did exactly what it needed to do. Nothing more, nothing less. Do you feel the same way?
I do. I do. I thought it was a great prelude to what's coming in the next however many issues this plays out, you know?
And I
I,
suppose you could
I
argue that why do you need a setup, but I think you do.
well, or like a segue maybe, a small transition. I mean, I don't know. I mean, you could have easily done this in issue 19, right? And then
Right.
continued on so forth and so forth. Why it needed its own though? I mean, that's the bigger question. Why did they feel the need to just print one book on its own, right? And
Sure.
not just include it in the overall.
And I can see that. I think some of it might have been I want to pretext my story, uh, and so let's do something special on the outside of it rather than waste another issue. I should say waste. Why spend my meat and potatoes to do all the setup when I can do the setup in one shot?
Sure.
I don't have a problem with that. I mean, we have history of that all the way back to Sinestro Corps War.
Hmm. Exactly.
Now, this was not as strong as the lead up to Sinestro Corps War, mind you.
No.
But I thought it did a good job of kind of moving the pieces around and giving you some of the background information that you might be asking if they just jumped right into it. So to me, there's a place for it. I don't regret having the issue. I don't regret reading the issue, which is more than I can say for some other series I've read in the past. So I think it was a perfectly serviceable issue.
Solid. And
All right.
Adams knows his stuff, man. Adams is doing great with his character. Like, you
Yeah.
know, I've got a lot of faith in his building techniques with what he's doing. And in each panel on this, I mean, even bringing the Guardians back and having them appear. You know, he's building it back up to what it once was, you know, and
Right.
it takes a while to get there. I ain't expecting things to happen overnight. I think the pacing that he's done this with all the way up until now has been pretty good. I mean, you're gonna have some lag issues in it here and there. I mean, that's just the way if you're reading it for a year, I mean, you're gonna have one or two issues that just might not hit like the other ones do. But overall, I think the series pacing has been great. I think he's moved Green Lantern into a good position, better than where they've been before. I mean, because there was a long time there where it just felt like even with Morrison's run, they didn't. I felt like it was just it was just Hal Jordan, and it was a great issue, and there were some other lanterns that appeared in there, but it didn't feel like a collective whole of your embodiment of what the core is,
Right.
right?
It didn't feel like he was dealing with the franchise at all. He was dealing with
Mm.
just one character. And
Right.
so
And
it
just
felt like it was being done at the expense of the entire core.
right. There you go.
Whereas this is trying to build on it. And he did there's two ways you could have dealt with coming out of the Thorn run. One, you could have just ignored it all, or two, you can build on it. And while you or I may have, and some other writers may have chosen just to chuck that piece of crap out the door and just started over from scratch and just kind of glossed it over. I think Jeremy Adams is a nicer person that, and he's a much more professional person than I would have been. And he was trying to take what was there and how do I transition it from where it was and where it was left to where he wants to go. And I think the entire run up till now has been that transition and that in working with Philip Kennedy Johnson on bringing what he's been doing with John Stewart and bringing it into the fold. So you're bringing the Thorn Run and War Journal together with what Adams is trying to do and melding it together. And now we're moving forward. And so I almost think of it as, they talk about it being all in, and we've talked about rebirth in the past. This to me is the start of the true part of his run. I think the past season has been just transitional,
Oh, and it's
and
just
throwing stuff in, but
well, and not only that, but you had a lot of interplay with everything else that's going on with the United Planets, right?
yeah,
And they collectively were a part of the whole DC core, so they were in other issues and they were having an impact elsewhere. This one just takes it into the singularity, right? Now it's just a Green Lantern thing. Now,
Right.
now we're just dealing with the core. It's a core issue, and they're going to go take care of whatever this emotional spectrum is, which is unique and specific to them.
And he also did this while dealing with involvement in two events.
Right.
So got to give him kudos for that. But we jump into Green Lantern number 19, again written by Jeremy Adams, artwork by three different artists. We'll talk a little bit about the artwork as we go. But Fernando Pasarin, Oclair Albert, and Jason Paz are the artists. And we jump into a Justice League thing with Carol. And it's interesting because we get Carol's voice and what she feels, what it feels like for her having, she did the whole New Guardians thing, but she's never been a superhero on this level, fighting alongside the Trinity and fighting as part of the Justice League. And you kind of get her perspective, those fresh eyes, which is kind of neat. She does a good job of holding her own. And then Hal shows up, and I thought it was such a neat, very Hal moment when he flies in and says, "Hey, good luck once you got cooking." Very, you can see the wrinkle spot, and of course you can see Batman not happy that Hal is happy with Carol. Uh,
Hal's never happy with anything.
Yeah, the bat is never happy. And he just kind of makes a face about it. And I love the fact that Superman and Wonder Woman think it's cute, which I think is great. But I will say the one thing I do not like is how they are depicting Carol's face.
Yeah, it looks a little cringy.
In fact, I think almost all of the female faces in this issue are almost interchangeable. Like, I don't think Wonder Woman necessarily looks like Wonder Woman in this issue either. So
Well, for that matter, Superman doesn't look. I mean, it's the faces that are getting you. I mean, because
yeah,
Batman looks fine, but he's half covered by a cowl, so it doesn't matter.
right. Yeah, but Carol just does not. She doesn't even look like Carol in this picture. She's got the dark hair, she's got the black hair, but that's not Carol's face. Anyway, I thought it was neat how they're dealing with the creature and so on. And again, Batman's not happy. Who'd have thunk? And Hal and Carol get a neat moment on board the Justice League satellite, which I thought was really nice that Adams gave them kind of a romantic moment. There's no tension between them. It's working well. It's interesting. One of the things that I'm kind of hoping happens at some point is that Carol and Hal have that conversation where Carol's like, I was really hard on you for leaving me all the time, but now I understand why. Because often that was what drove their relationship apart most of the time. It was the fact that Carol couldn't accept the fact that Hal had to put other priorities first. And now that she sees it, does that change her perspective a little? And likewise, Hal's got to realize that now that he sees her going off and doing things too, he's got to worry about her just as much as Carol would have worried about him in the past. And so he's got to understand her perspective more too. And I think it makes the relationship stronger if Adam spends a lot of time on it. We don't know how much time he's going to spend. Obviously, Carol is now a mainstay in the Justice League Unlimited book. And I don't know how much she's going to be in this series. I think for a while she's going to be, and I think you're going to see moments like this where they get together. This is the ultimate long distance relationship, right?
I mean, yeah, it kind of is. But it's nice that they talk about the sorrow guy, right?
Yeah, they talk about their responsibility in it. Hal wants Carol on his team, but she has a very good reason for not doing it, which I think is kind of neat. I love just the dynamic between the two in this, and it's interesting to talk about Kyle, and that elephant's never addressed, right? That they never talk about the whole thing with Kyle. That's one thing they've kind of forgotten, which I'm glad for.
Yeah, we can do without it, you know. It's kind of like the whole thing with Wonder Woman and Superman being together. It's like we
Yeah,
could have
yeah.
done without that.
And I felt the same way here. I mean, Carol's the same way. In some spots, she just does not look like Carol. So it takes me out of it a little bit, but I have to get used to it because I can't change the art.
And then we come across Odyssey, the Time Bandit.
Yeah, I thought there was. I don't remember Odyssey before. Is Odyssey a new character? Do you know?
I do not know. I thought somebody on a Reddit thread said if it's somebody pulled from the past, but I can't be for certain.
I tried to do some research and I didn't find Odyssey listed anywhere.
Okay.
So I think Odyssey is a new character, which is an interesting way to introduce the character because Kyle knows who she is, but we don't really know who she is.
Yeah, how does Kyle know who she is then?
Right. And it looks like she's got a gun. I'm not sure whose gun that is. I was trying to make out like what is it she's taking? She's got a sword, she's got this gun. I'm assuming it's her own stuff. I'm assuming she's not stealing somebody else's tech.
No, because it doesn't look like it.
Yeah, I couldn't place it as belonging to anybody. I like the banter back and forth between Kyle and Odyssey. And if Jeremy didn't Adams didn't go with the story where he's going, I would have thought this would have been a romantic interest for Kyle, but
Yeah, but
clearly it's not.
yeah, that would have been a cute. I mean, they would have been cute together. It just seemed like this interaction was short but playful.
Yeah, yeah, I thought it was very playful. Again, face wise, pretty generic. I like the design of the outfit though. I think it looks interesting. I love this scene where they're in Australia and those two guys are at the edge of the little pit area there, and Odyssey and Kyle show up, and these two guys kind of like freak out. They're there. I thought that was comical. And the arrival of Connor Kent, I thought was interesting. And clearly he's the love interest for Odyssey. I didn't recognize him as Connor. It's been so long since I've seen Connor. I did not recognize him as Connor.
No, where'd he come from?
Yeah, it was like he was in this pit in Australia.
Because when's the last time Connor's been around?
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't been reading any of the Superman family books. I'm not sure where he's been.
And I have, and maybe why can't I think about what's been going on with him? I really don't know. I mean, it's mainly for the Superman title mainly focuses on John, his
Yeah,
son, not Connor,
I always thought Connor was the more interesting character, but
right?
and again, you can tell that Odyssey is. I don't know if I would say smitten is the right word, but you can see there's an instant attraction there. And then we
Well, when
have
he appears on scene like that, I can understand.
he made an impression.
Yeah.
And it was interesting to see the Interceptor. This is the second time we've seen the Interceptor on the pages of the comics, which is kind of
Mhm.
neat. Uh, and again, unfortunately, like the first time we saw the Interceptor on the pages of the comics, they drop flying backwards. But it is what it is. Can't can't change it. Can't do anything about it. I love the Hal and Carol saying goodbye. When I saw that Hal saying "love you," I expected the Carol to say "I know." Star Wars,
That would have been a classic reversal.
wouldn't it? Wouldn't have been. That was the first thing that jumped in my head. But you see them on the ship. I like the fact that Hal even references that the artificial intelligence isn't there, which I thought was neat. A neat little Easter egg for Green Lantern animated series fans. Will we see Aya show up? Who knows? But boy, I wish they would draw the interceptor flying the correct way. I don't like it flying the way it looks. It's going to bug me. I know
You
it's going to
should
be.
just tag Jeremy Adams and on his blue sky or whatever, and just like, hey man, just to let you know the interceptor's backwards.
Other people pointed out I was going to, and I saw other people did. And I'm like, okay, I'm not going to be that guy. Uh, but if we get him
Yeah,
back
but
on the
you are
show
that
again,
guy.
yeah, when we get him back on the show again, that'll be my first question. You can ask about the sandwich. I'll ask about the interceptor. Why?
Done.
I mean, I get that it was drawn that way once before, but I doubt many people remember it. I also felt it was drawn better the first time we saw it. Here, it looks a little plump in the center there. It looks like one of those squeezy toys. It squirts water. It's a little out of proportion for my liking, but at least it's here, and I'm happy to see it. The
And then we get to the
arrival,
castle of the desolate stone.
yes, and the arrival of the whole Star Killer Corps, which I thought was kind of interesting. Starbreaker Corps, excuse me. Where Star Killer came from, I don't know. Uh, Probably the Star Wars thing. Uh,
Who's the dude in charge here? We seen this guy before?
yeah, he's been around.
Okay.
Starbreaker. He has been around before. He's an energy vampire type guy. He is essentially a version of a Sun Eater. He is Bezlebeth's father. Remember
Okay.
Countess Bezlebeth from the Morrison run?
Yeah.
This guy is her father. And he was kind of a lame-o villain for the Justice League. He wasn't around very long. But here he is, and he's got his own core. Hey, I got a core, you get a core, everybody gets a core. It's
Apparently.
interesting.
And
Apparently,
he's reading the book of Oa, so
yeah, he's figuring some stuff out, which is kind of a scary thought. You know, you get that kind of knowledge in the wrong hands, and man, I like the fact that Hal leaves these guys to go off and do their own little thing as he goes and finds out what's going on this planet. And that Red Lantern is pretty cool looking at the end of the issue.
I've never seen him before.
No, I think he's a brand new guy. I think this is again an offshoot of the fractured spectrum. Hey, got it out of my mouth right.
That makes sense.
It's a part of that. But look at all those dead bodies, man. Hal walked right into the middle of it. And that's what ends the issue. Again, I thought it was a good kickoff. You know, I think it sets the stage for Hal to go off and have his story, and Kyle to have his story, and kind of share it. Whether Kyle's part is going to continue in Green Lantern Corps or continue in the Green Lantern book, I'm not 100% sure. I try not to look at the solicits because sometimes it spoils my reading experience. But next month, getting in this month, actually, February, we get the debut of the Green Lantern Corps and we get continuation. I think it's off to an interesting start. Again, we haven't seen how bad the bad is yet until the Starbreaker Corps starts doing their thing and we know exactly what it is he's doing other than potentially building more batteries.
So here's my question about the books, right? So you got issue 20 coming out, and then you got the core book starting. Now, are the stories gonna simultaneously play out in both issues? Do you have to read one before you read the other issue, or are they branching off and doing two separate stories and they might intertwine later?
Right. Like I remember when during the Johns and Tomasi era, when Tomasi had Green Lantern Corps, it was its own thing, but they would intersect periodically.
Which I'm guessing what that probably do here.
It seems to me that'd be the easiest thing to do, but then you've got Jeremy Adams writing both books, so he could do a thing. I mean, I remember back a lot of us old people talk fondly of the triangle era of Superman when you had 4 or 5 different titles and they had a little triangle in the corner that connected them, and so you knew the reading order and the one would connected the other. And I don't see it going that direction. I think it's going to be a separate thing, but I think you're going to see the stories interweave as they need to. I think obviously the fractured spectrum is going to take place in both books in different ways, and probably when it gets near its conclusion, they will tie together. It's my guess, my hunch.
And worth mentioning that this one was Legacy number 586.
Yep, they've continued the legacy numbering, which is nice. I wonder if they will do legacy numbering for Green Lantern Corps, because I believe this is like the 4th Green Lantern Corps series.
That'd be interesting.
Yeah, we'll see if they do. Obviously not nearly as many numbers, but it'd be interesting to see if they do it.
Cool.
So, my
solid
friend,
issue. Both solid issues.
Yep, definitely solid issues. So why don't we take a quick pause? We'll come back and we'll wrap it all up.
All right.
This is Razor, and you are listening to the blog of Oa. You need to keep listening, otherwise I will track you down with all of my skill, and you will feel my wrath.
Fellow Owens, I have a lot of sorrow, and I'm looking forward to seeing Nathan Broom and what the Sorrow Lantern has to offer moving forward. I do think he's going to be a heel, though. You know, he's already a whooping boy with Starbreaker, so
I think he's going to be a victim. I think he's going to meet a sad end. I think he's going to be the Renfield of this story.
Okay. All right. I'm going to call heel. You're going to call the Renfield. That's fair. That's actually pretty good. Hey, wait a minute. At the end of the day, you think Carol's going to take him back?
No. No. I don't think he's going to be long for this world. I think, the Starbreakers are energy vampires, and the Sorrow Lantern is basically good food for them. And I think eventually his naivete is going to bite him in the back, and he's going to be a victim.
That was good.
But
fair enough.
We'll see.
I like it though. These solid issues. I'm looking forward to where this is going.
I'm sorrowful too. I'm sad that this episode is over.
I know we need more content.
Yeah.
But we should have talked about Green Lantern Dark. I don't know how I feel. I'm on the fence about that. I got to reread the first issue and then read the second one. I don't know if I'm gonna like it or not. It feels like it feels like some kind of like Nirvana, like during like some teenage angst period of her life. You know what I mean? I like smells like Teen Spirit. Like that's what I got. The first issue, I was like, man, I feel like Nirvana should be playing in the background with this person.
I have not read it yet. I kind of made the decision consciously to wait and read it when it comes out in trade.
Okay, well that's fair. Maybe that's what I should, and I should do the same thing because I don't, and I might not be giving it a fair shake.
I
And
think it's one of those things like Far Sector. I think it's going to read better as a completed unit.
Yeah, you're probably right. And speaking of that, I wonder what happened to Far Sector. Is it still out there? Is it still the Far Sector? She still take care of it anymore? Is that just a offshoot of?
I don't know. I mean, it was in Elseworlds.
Oh no.
Should have remained in Elseworlds in my book, but we'll see. And we'll see what happens. Oh, only because I think in her having that special ring and functioning differently like that, that made her more unique. Now she's just another Green Lantern.
Yep. And she's lined up next to the likes of guys like Simon Baz.
Right. She's the next Simon Baz. It's just because there's nothing there for her to, there's nothing unique about her that makes her stand out, that she just is another background character. I'd much rather see more about Kilowog or Slack or Aricia or any of these other characters that have been around for a long time that I really like that doesn't get the screen time or panel time. I'd rather be reading about them than yet another Earth Lantern. That's me. Other people out there that really like the character. I think if it had been left as an Elseworlds, it could have continued to had its own thing.
You're right.
But whatever. Anyway, friends, we will be back again. I promise it will not be another whole month wait or so for us to get back together and record again. Hopefully the bad days for 2025 are behind me and we can plunge forward and keep bringing you guys some more content. As always, though, we appreciate you listening to us or watching us, which depends on how you consume the podcast of OA. We appreciate you, and we hope to be around for quite a while. I think the worst is over. I hope. We'll see. But anyway, until next time, take care of each other, treat each other well, keep that power ring charged, and make every day your brightest day, my friends. Take care. Thanks so much for watching this Green Lantern video from the blog of OA. If you liked what you saw, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can find even more great Green Lantern videos, reviews, podcasts, and more at our main website, www.blogofoa.com. So until next time, keep your power ring charged and make every day your brightest day.